The following audio discussion is from episode 8 of Astound's podcast series, AI and the Future of Work. Host Dan Turchin, co-founder and chief product officer of Astound, welcomes special guest Doug Tedder, ITSM thought leader and principal of Tedder Consulting, to discuss what leaders need to know about how a virtual agent can transform their help desk and improve operational efficiencies.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to today's special Astound webcast. We've got a great guest who's going to be joining me today. This is Dan Turchin, co-founder of Astound, coming at you live from Menlo Park, California, where I couldn't be more excited than to have today's speaker join me to discuss a topic that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about what's required to transform your help desk with virtual agents. So there's never been a better time to be having this conversation. So glad that you could join us. Just super pleased to have, first and foremost, a friend, Doug Tedder, join, but also, an esteemed thought leader. I imagine most of our listeners today know of Doug or have seen Doug in action. He is the principal of his firm, Tedder Consulting, but also very active in the IT and ITSM communities. Been actively involved in ITSMF, actively involved in API. A frequent speaker, a frequent author, very involved in the IDLE specs. Doug, welcome to today's webcast. You want to go ahead and share a few opening thoughts, and then we'll launch into the Q&A.
Well, thank you, Dan. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thank everyone for taking a little bit of time from their busy schedules to join us to chat a little bit about how AI and virtual agents are going to really impact the way that we do our work from an IT perspective. So this is a topic that I've been particularly interested in for some time now, and I'm just real excited to talk about this and where we are going to go as far as an industry and how AI and virtual agents are really going to help us get there.
Good. And what an exciting time it is to be a leader in IT or a leader in employee service. We've got these new capabilities we've never had. We've got a new set of expectations from employees. There's just kind of this expectation that we're on the cusp of finally delivering the kind of employee experiences that our employees deserve. So, Doug, we talk about using AI to first make humans smarter. I know that's a place where you and I are in violent agreement and where we feel like we want to be in a position where we're educating the IT leaders in our community about what it means to think about AI creating jobs and AI making humans smarter. What do you feel like is or will be the cultural impact on the enterprise of AI and machine learning?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. You kind of touched on it in the opening discussion there, is that the traditional model is that we get a contact at the service desk, we have to go look for knowledge. If we can't solve it immediately, it literally takes hours. And quite frankly, that is an antiquated model. I think in today's modern, always on, always connected enterprise and the way that we do business now, the cultural shift is going to be that we expect to have the right answers at the right time as we need them. And so it's going to start to shift the expectations, not only for service providers and ensuring that they provide that great experience, whether that's for their customer or their users or their employees, but also shift the expectations as we as information consumers have. It's not enough just to be fast, but we also have to be accurate and relevant in our speed and delivery. And that's where I think AI and machine learning is going to have the biggest impact. We'll have the ability to not only be fast, but also relevant and in context, because with machine learning, we'll have the ability to literally make sense of massive amounts of data in just seconds and provide the right answer to the consumer or the employee or the customer.
I love that we're finally shifting the tone of the conversation from kind of technology-centric services to user-centric services. I think that's a shift that we've been pretending to make or talking about for probably 20 years in the space. Along those lines, I'll pose a question that might seem controversial, at least to some of our listeners, but I'd argue isn't really. And is traditional service management relevant? And if so, how is it changing? And if not, what's going to replace it?
And I think this is one of the biggest enablers for an effective use of artificial intelligence and machine learning within organizations is having a rock solid service management implementation. I guess what I would say, because some things aren't going to change, right? We've got to have effective processes. We've got to understand how we deliver value through the use of technology and people and process, those kind of things. That part of service management won't change. But I think the thing that will change is that we have to look at service management more holistically. We have to understand how service management plays from an end-to-end perspective. Too many service management implementations, in my experience, are only dealing with a portion of the value chain that delivers to the customer. They may be just dealing with just the service desk or perhaps just the operations organization and really haven't taken that holistic look. So I think that's maybe where the shift in service management is going to have to happen in order to take advantage of what the promise of AI is, that service management now truly must be end to end from an organizational perspective and not just dealing with just perhaps the operational aspects.
I'd say service management is more relevant than ever. As we finally place the focus back on the employee experience, that's when we really need to get back to the roots of what it really means to deliver great service.
The thing about service management that really never changed was always the intent, is deliver that great experience, whether that was to the business or to the customer. And I think that's where some organizations perhaps didn't follow all the way through. But now I think, AI and virtual agents and those kind of things gives us an opportunity to kind of get that last mile of service management in place. We're going to need it if we're going to have success with AI.
Yeah, so today's topic is primarily about virtual agents and their impact. We want to spend less time talking about the technology and more time talking about the business benefits. So what kind of a framework would you pose to service management practitioners when they think about where virtual agents are a good fit for the business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And, the way I would approach it, there's kind of two benefits, I think, from a business perspective with the use of a virtual agent. One, we free up those highly skilled technical resources that we have in the IT organization to do something other than the mundane. Yes, password resets are important. Yes, providing answers to consumers' questions are important. But quite frankly, a virtual agent will do that job extremely well and to the satisfaction of the consumer at that point. So there's the first benefit. We provide better customer experience, customer support, those kind of things. But the second benefit is that we can now leverage those smart people that we have that were formerly doing those kinds of mundane tasks and turn their attention to things that humans do much better. Innovate, strategize, imagination, those kinds of things, and really tap into that potential that we've not been able to really access up until now because we haven't had somebody, something take over that daily mundane kinds of activities that our service desk often winds up having to do. Again, I don't want to trivialize that. That's extremely important. But I think the better use of human resources is even more important.
And nobody expects that requests for, like you said, mundane or routine services are delivered in a traditional way via tickets and live agents and wait times. Like that's an awful experience. Let's automate the easy stuff. And to your point, let the humans, the live agents, focus on things that require intuition and judgment and traits that are, innately human. So along those lines, maybe kind of next two topics, when is a virtual agent appropriate, maybe specific use cases, and are there reasons why you think employees might actually learn to prefer getting service from a virtual agent versus the traditional methods?
Well, and I think, the answer is right there, because we're able to leverage a virtual agent that really does shift control into the hands of the employee. The employee can now, we can start to think about different ways of doing work. Employees can start to work on their own schedules and know that they'll have the support as they need it when they need it, and it is a high quality of support. It will reduce frustration. It'll reduce bottleneck and waste at time and effort waiting for. And again, I don't want to trivialize the live agent. The live agents are fantastically skilled, but there's only so many of them. A virtual agent gives us the ability to, it's kind of like a force multiplier when you think about it. We're enabling hundreds of employees, all of our employees, by taking that burden away from a live agent, and especially for those day-to-day routine kinds of things. And it gives the employee, the ability to kind of manage their own work and work at their own pace without having to necessarily be regulated to the hours of the service desk, for example. So I think that's where a great example where an employee might prefer a virtual agent.
Yeah, it came out so clearly in our primary research as we went out and interviewed kind of employees and IT practitioners. And the unanimous theme was, just deliver the right answer the first time. And if that's via virtual agent, excellent. If that's via phone support, email support, all are acceptable. What's clear, though, is that there's a ton of frustration built up from the current method channels. Yes. And so introducing a new one likely to deliver better answers, it's clear that there's no kind of structural impediment to adoption. There's a real thirst for, a better method of delivering service. So along those lines, so think about kind of, put yourself in the shoes of the practitioners who are listening today, and thinking about, their MTTR and their FCR and their customer sat and, their shift left strategies, the things that kind of drive the business of IT. Where do you think some of these AI-driven technologies fit into the traditional set of IT KPIs?
Yeah, I think that's another great advantage of having the virtual agent involved here and doing those kind of things, because we're delivering the right answer at the right time to the right people. Obviously the first call resolution metrics and all of those traditional metrics by which we measure the success of a service desk, mean time to resolve and those kind of things are going to dramatically improve. If we have the right service management foundation in place, they'll absolutely improve. But I think the other thing that will start to emerge, because those things become so much more improved, is that we as IT can start to develop the metrics that really demonstrate the business value or the business impact that IT is making. And so I think we're going to see this whole different set of metrics that will become associated with IT. In the traditional set, IT always seems to report on just technology metrics. And while those things are important and important to understand from the management of those technologies, from a business perspective, they have little to no meaning. What if we were able, from an IT perspective, to really demonstrate and show measures that underscore our contribution to business success? If we are freeing up our time and answering calls and resolving user queries in a much more streamlined, effective, almost instantaneous way, now we can start to turn our attention to other more higher level kinds of activities that would really reflect well, not only on we are good keepers of the technology, but we're also good stewards of facilitating business outcomes and value that quite frankly, that's what the business really wants from IT.
Doug, I'd argue that we're right on the cusp of introducing some new metrics that I think will matter more than the traditional metrics. And I'd call one critical one, call it, MTTD, the mean time to delight your customer. It's no longer enough to, provide an answer that may or may not be the best one and then pat yourself on the back because you think that you've resolved it. Really, the metric is, how effectively can we delight the customer? And I think a lot of these uses of AI-driven automation are going to make the humans smarter, make the employees' experience better, but really accelerate that time to delight.
I would agree. It's no longer important. The importance of how you're doing things, is just as important, if not more so, than what you do. I mean, what we do traditionally has always been provide those answers, and we try to provide the best answer that we can at the time. And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But to your point, now we've got this whole nother family of metrics, this whole nother classification of metrics, if you will, that really start to show the experience. That is becoming just as important, if not more so, than what we do. It's how we're doing it. And this is where virtual agents could have such a huge impact.
For everyone listening who's thinking about, the introduction of AI-driven automation into their support processes, does it eliminate the need for good process, or where does the introduction of AI-driven automation kind of supplement or complement traditional IT processes?
So for all the good things that AI brings to the table, one of the things that AI will not do for you is fix a bad process. AI, while it is going to be such an enabling force for our businesses and our organizations, when it comes down to it, is some very smartly written algorithm. I mean, it's no different than the thing that we've learned all along as we've been involved in technology. If you feed good technology garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So, a good AI is not going to fix your poorly designed process. It's just going to exasperate it. But then I would take it one step further. If your service management environment, if you're not aware of how you actually deliver the business outcomes and the value of those outcomes, how is AI going to then understand how to make rationalized decisions? When it comes to machine learning, what is the best course that will provide the best outcomes for the business at the best value? If you don't understand that already from a service management perspective, AI is not going to help you with that. It's going to point out that you don't understand it. So good AI is good AI, but it is highly dependent upon the quality of data and input that is being provided to it. If it's getting bad process in, you're going to have a bad process out. It's just going to run a heck of a lot faster.
Well said. So one of the services I think you and I provide is by countering some of the kind of apprehensions and kind of concerns in the community about the role or the impact of AI on traditional IT jobs. What's your perspective on where we're headed in terms of job creation versus job elimination kind of facilitated by AI?
That is a legitimate concern. And, if I'm in the audience today, that would be one of the questions that I would have. Dan, it's very obvious. I mean, you and I see it every day, a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt around the introduction of bots and how is AI going to impact work as we know it. And the answer is kind of two-part. There are going to be some jobs that will be replaced by bots. History shows that as technology has been introduced, some jobs have gone away. There's no longer that big demand anymore for blacksmiths, for example, as we advanced our farming concepts and capabilities. So in that regard, there are going to be some IT jobs that will likely be better suited for bots. But on the flip side of that, just like with other, advances in technology throughout history, there have been new jobs that have been created, and there's new work that will be created out of, somebody's got to care and feed for the bot, for example. A really well-rounded, technically capable service desk agent is the ideal candidate to keep your bots from drifting so much, just because the algorithm works today. As your business changes and evolves, that bot has to change and evolve along with it. Somebody's got to do that. While there may be some AI-assisted kind of learning, it's still going to take the human to get involved and update the algorithms and understand and make sure that we're keeping biases, unintentional biases from our algorithms and those kind of things. So, there will be some jobs that do perhaps fall by the wayside, but I think they will be replaced and with other jobs and even new jobs that you and I are only imagining now, but will become reality here very soon.
I think that's the topic of a whole separate discussion, Doug. I agree. I think one of the things we found is, call it maybe since the first industrial revolution in the 19th century.
Yep.
It's always a bad idea to be on the wrong side of innovation. And in this case, if we look back at even the pattern over the last 20 years, let alone 200 years, whether it was, the shift to client server computing or, the internet or mobile computing or cloud computing, there's always a net creation of new jobs. And that's what I firmly believe is happening as well due to the introduction of AI-driven automation. Now, Doug, we've only got a couple more minutes. We've got a lot of Q&A I'd like to get to, so I want to bring our short discussion to a close. So, kind of final two topics. Back to the kind of my opening salvo. Is IT more or less relevant up ahead? And then, kind of perhaps most important, I think we're lucky enough to have you as a guest today. Would love to have you share advice that you have, maybe for those who are listening and kind of mapping out their career in IT. Where would you have them be kind of investing in? What kind of skills, how should they think about kind of building a leadership role in IT?
Yeah, I think these are two fantastic questions. The first thing is I have said this for some time now. This is a fantastic time to be in IT. I think this is an absolutely fantastic time to be involved in IT service management. But I think the shift and where I would provide advice for future leaders is that, it's no secret that the use of technology is becoming so integral to just everyday life, not just business, but everyday life, that it's really incumbent upon us to really understand how to take advantage of technology and understand what technology can do for us. So my advice is, yes, get to know the technology, but even better than that, become a continual learner. Technology will continue to evolve, and I think our talents as technical experts and those kind of things, it's not going to be so much getting really good at a specific technology, but also getting good at learning and adapting to change, and because our world is constantly evolving. So there's piece of advice number one. Piece of advice number two, as you get involved with an organization, get to know that organization really, really well. Understand what it values, what drives that business, what is the reputation that business wants to have amongst its customers, goals and objectives. Get really good at understanding the business of the business. And I think if future IT leaders would have focus on those two things, get good at learning and really understand your business, I think you're going to find a great career in front of you.
Yeah, well said, Doug. I think that's good advice. For now, I wanted to go ahead and answer a few questions that have been coming in. And we're going through Q&A. I wanted to share with everyone listening that just for attending, you'll get both a recording of this full conversation. We're also going to share with you a virtual agent ebook that helps you kind of think through some questions to ask when you're selecting the right virtual agent for your organization. Also, we haven't talked too much about Astound, the leading AI platform for employee service, but we'd love to continue the conversation by introducing you to kind of the future of work. There's a link there, astound.ai/demo-sign-up, and we'd love to tell you more about what some of these key concepts that Doug and I have been discussing are actually, how they're actually being used in the wild. So with that said, I'll go ahead and keep this slide up so you can copy down the URL. And then, Doug, maybe if between the two of us, we can answer a few of these questions. Looks like the first one I'll take looks like it was directed probably at me. We're using ServiceNow. How is Astound different? So for those of you on the line who are using ServiceNow, or really any traditional system of record, it could be a Remedy, it could be a Sharewell, it could be a CA, etc. What Astound does is quite different. So unlike a traditional system of record, Astound is kind of what we refer to as a layer of intelligence that gets wrapped around one or more traditional systems of record to essentially make it smart. So Astound automates the learning process to be able to automate the full life cycle of an employee service request. And specifically, kind of the way you introduce intelligence into the service delivery process is by considering all sources of data as equally attractive. So Astound ingests kind of 360 degrees of content into a normalized AI model. And that content can come from structured, semi-structured, unstructured sources, think email, wikis, chat transcripts, knowledge articles, et cetera. And then it's able to kind of feed these insights, these automated decisions into various points in the process to kind of remove the choke points that impact the user experience. So Astound is backed by domain ontologies. And when you use the Astound apps, you'll find that they, quote, speak the language of employee service, because all of the AI models are trained on kind of the core ways that employees talk about HR or IT or facilities or finance, et cetera. And so that kind of automated conversational fluency is unique to Astound. We use principles like transfer learning so that all of the answers that are generic, maybe that come from public sources or things like that, are available to all Astound customers on day one. We're big believers in kind of the philosophy of practicing responsible AI. So we make sure that all of the AI-driven automation from Astound is explainable, it's configurable, it's transparent. And one of the ways that we kind of stick to that core philosophy is what we call active learning. That's involving humans in the loop, so that when the AI models get confused, rather than potentially making a recommendation that's not the best one, Astound will actually ask a process owner, hey, can you help clarify what's the right answer here? The last point I'd make that kind of makes Astound kind of different from what else is out there is that this is all we do. So we got a large team of experts that are passionate about AI. Every one of the Astound customers gets what we call our AI managed service. So kind of it's a very consultative approach to guarantee that your initiative is successful. But we're very invested in your success and kind of your journey, including kind of what the right use cases are, like Doug was talking about. Where do you start? What does the journey look like? We make sure that it's mapped really to your set of priorities. So a bit of a long-winded answer, but good question. And that's how you can think of kind of a system of intelligence as being kind of a wrapper around traditional systems of record, whether that's a ServiceNow or other systems of record. So the next question, also a good question. Any best practices to get users to adopt self-service tools, including virtual agents? Doug, I have some thoughts there, but I don't know if I could put you on the spot. Any words to share with the group?
It really is a shift in the mindset of many organizations to become comfortable with using technology. So obviously having a good marketing campaign, which is things that we've talked about from service management for eons now, right? But having that good marketing campaign and establishing, getting some of the mythology, I guess, around AI, addressing that and getting it out of the way, and providing that good feedback mechanism as folks interact with the virtual agent. Let us know what you think about that, and that tends to drive adoption a little bit better. Also, getting some advocates out there in the user community, maybe some of your super users to become early adopters of the use of the virtual agent and have them talk about their experiences from their perspectives. There are a couple of things that come to mind to kind of help drive the adoption.
All good points. I'd say a couple of things that we see the most progressive or the most effective AI strategies do, maybe better than others. Certainly to your point, cultivate champions. So I'd say also, make them heroes, whether it's, you gamify it, give them badges, or just kind of acknowledge them, in internal kind of social media channels. That goes a long way. Make sure that the virtual agent is available in the channel that is the preferred channel for employees already. So put the virtual agent where it's most likely to be used, whether that's in a voice channel, email, a collaboration tool, SMS. So meet the employees halfway so that you're not asking them to kind of shift their behavior. And then over time, you might want to introduce new channels, but definitely meet them where they are at, kind of quote, the moment of truth, when they're about to pick up the phone or send an email, that's where you want the virtual agent to be. So that's a couple additional thoughts. Next question we'll take. We got, I think, time for two more. So Dave says, our CIO asked us to present our AI strategy to the board. Where should we start? Doug, any thoughts for Dave?
Yeah, it's a great question. And just like any technology, and it has its benefits, it also has some risk associated with it. So in my opinion, the place to start is really coming up with that solid business case for the use of AI. How is it really going to impact your business? What are the objectives that you hope to accomplish? What will success look like? What is needed to have that success? If you present it in those terms and in terms of the business impact and the outcomes that you hope to enable, I think that's a better way of doing it. If much like just throwing good AI on top of bad process, if you just throw good AI out into the environment with no real purpose or identified objectives, in my opinion, it's a wasted investment and a wasted opportunity. So I think it always has to start with that. What is that problem we're trying to solve, and how will AI help us solve that problem?
As we all know, technology projects fail, business projects succeed.
Yes,
so identify,
indeed.
to your point, identify the KPIs, identify why it matters to the business. If you want to increase self-service adoption, then maybe a virtual agent to help improve, navigation through a self-service portal. Maybe that's the right first step. Or if you want to reduce, MTTR, or, the new metric I introduced, MTTD, then, maybe you want to use AI to kind of provide the live agents with kind of a set of next best actions. So kind of identify what the business needs and then kind of map your strategy to the needs of the business. I think that's a good commentary, Doug. Okay, I think we got time for one more. It looks like this one's directed at me. So what does Astound cost? So again, I haven't been spending too much time talking about Astound. I can give you kind of a high level, and then please click the link here in the slide and we'll provide additional detail. So there are 4 AI-driven applications built on the Astound AI platform. There's Answers, which is our virtual agent. There's Predict, which kind of assesses kind of all the hygiene and does the routing of tickets. There's Advise, which provides these kind of digital dossiers to tell the agent how to fix the problem. And then there's Analyze, which is a predictive analytics dashboard. We do sell the whole platform, all the applications. You should never be penalized for using more of the applications. We charge based on the number of recommendations that the platform's making. It is a pricing model that's designed to be transparent and predictable. You know exactly what you're paying for and why. You have tight control over how and when recommendations are made. So we've really designed the pricing model to be a way that we closely partner with our customers to deliver a lot of value, typically more value than they expect. Again, in terms of specifics, it's easiest to talk about in terms of your own organization and kind of your objectives. I'd encourage you to go ahead and click that link, sign up for a demo, and happy to have the full conversation. With that said, we're about at our witching hour. Doug, great conversation as always. Really thrilled that you made time for us and for our audience members. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, first of all, thanks again for asking me to participate. It's been a real pleasure. I am really excited about what AI can do for us overall. I'm particularly excited about the impact that AI is going to have on service management, and I really feel passionately about the two topics. So I think we've got some great adventures in front of us, and I'm looking forward to see what tomorrow brings.
We look forward to having you on a future webcast, and look forward to continuing this discussion offline. Thanks to everyone for joining.
To download Astound's ebook on how to select the right virtual agent for your employees, visit www.astound.ai for more information.